You didn't get here by asking for help. You got here by being the person with the answers. Now that's not a criticism, it's just how leadership works at your level. You see, you read the room, you make the calls, you move things forward. That's why people follow you. So when someone suggests you get a coach, something inside you resists. I don't mean aggressively, because you're too self-aware for that. You just quietly decide it's not for you right now. And that decision tells you more about where you are now than almost anything else you've done this week. Here's what the research on leadership development actually shows. The leaders who seek coaching earliest, and I mean before a crisis or a performance issue or before someone has a real concern, those leaders outperform their peers over a 10-year window, not marginally, significantly. And the leaders who resist it the longest share a specific profile. High performance, strong track record, deep belief in self-sufficiency as a professional identity. In other words, they look exactly like you. Zenger and Foltman analysed 360-degree feedback across tens of thousands of leaders. What they found was a consistency gap, not in skills, not in results, but in self-awareness. You see, leaders rated themselves significantly higher than people around them rated them. And the higher the seniority, the wider the gap. Not because senior leaders are worse, because the feedback loop around them gets smaller the more senior they become. People stop saying the hard thing, they rephrase it, they soften it, they wait for the right moment which never quite comes. And the leader keeps making decisions with a picture of themselves that is slightly persistently wrong. This is where the coaching resistance becomes expensive, because it's not just about personal development, it's about the quality of information you're operating on. Think about the last time someone gave you genuinely difficult feedback. Not a concern framed carefully as a question, and not a suggestion wrapped up as a compliment. Actually difficult and uncomfortable to hear. How long ago was that? If you're struggling to answer, that's not because you've figured everything out. It's because you've become someone people find hard to tell things to. Not because you're aggressive and not because you punish people, but because you're good at responding in ways that subtly signal the feedback didn't land. You engage with it thoroughly, you explain the context, you demonstrate you've considered it, and then you move on. And the person who gave it you watches you move on and files something away. They don't stop respecting you, they just stop bringing you difficult things. Here's the behaviour that shows up in leaders at this stage, and it's not the one you'd expect. It's not arrogance, it's competence used as a filter. You've developed real judgment, real experience. You've seen enough situations to know what good looks like. And so when someone raises something, either a challenge, a concern, different perspective, you process it through everything you already know. Sometimes you're right to filter it. Experienced judgment is real, but over time, the filter starts catching things it shouldn't. Like a junior person's insight immediately dismissed because of who said it, not what was said. A pattern in the data ignored because it doesn't match your read. Piece of feedback set aside because you've heard something similar before and you know how the story ends. You're not doing this consciously, you're processing it quickly and efficiently through a mental model built on experience that you've got here. The problem is that mental model was built for where you were, not for where you're going. There's a sentence pattern worth listening for in yourself, not in others. It starts with, I hear what you're saying, and that and is doing a lot of work. Not and I want to sit with that. Not and I think you're right, and here's the context you might not have. And I think what you're actually seeing is, and I want to make sure you're solving the right problem. The sentence starts as if it's receiving. It ends as if it's correcting. The feedback went in, it just didn't land. Something intercepted it on the way down and converted it into an opportunity to explain. You've done this, so have I, so has everyone at this level. The question isn't whether or not you do it, the question is whether you know you do it. Leadership coaching isn't what you think it is. It's not therapy. It's not someone telling you what to do. It's not a signal that something is wrong. It's structured access to a perspective with no stake in your approval, no reason to soften the thing, no history of watching you respond badly to the difficult things and deciding it wasn't worth it. The best leaders in any field, be that sport, business, politics, don't use coaches because they're struggling. They use coaches because staying sharp requires something outside the system, someone who can see the loop from the outside when you're on the inside. The leaders who wait until there's a problem, until the feedback arrives not from a coach but from the board or a team that's quietly disengaged, or a decision that's cost them in a way they can't ignore. Those leaders paid for the same insight, they just pay more for it later, with less room to move. You got here without a coach, that's real, it counts. But the thing that got you here is not automatically the thing that gets you further. The version of you making the next set of decisions at higher stakes, with fewer people around you willing to say the uncomfortable things, that version needs a cleaner signal than you're currently getting. The question isn't whether you need it, it's whether you'll decide you do before the situation decides for you. If that landed somewhere, this channel is about the things that land and don't get said out loud. That's why it exists. See you next time.